where'd you start? You start with a company that builds a box. And in practice, this box, they probably dress it up to look like a life-changing, world-altering protocol that's going to replace all the big banks in 38 days or whatever. Maybe for now, actually ignore what it does or pretend it does literally nothing. It's just a box. So what this protocol is, it's called Protocol X. It's a box, and you can take a token, you can take Ethereum, you can put it in the box, and you can take it out of the box. Like you put it into the box, and you get an IOU for having put it in the box, and then you can redeem that IOU back out for the token. So far, what we've described is the world's dumbest ETF or ADR or something like that. It doesn't do anything but let you put things in it if you so chose. And then this protocol issues a token. We'll call it whatever, X token. And X token promises that anything cool that happens because of this box is going to ultimately be usable by, governance vote of holders of the X tokens. They can vote on what to do with any proceeds or other cool things that happen from this box. And of course, so far, we haven't exactly given a compelling reason for why there ever would be any proceeds from this box. But I don't know, maybe there will be. So that's sort of where you start. And then you say, all right, well, you got this box and you got X token. And the box protocol declares or maybe votes via on-chain governance or, something like that, that what they're going to do is they are going to take half of all the X tokens that will have reminted, maybe 2/3 though. 2/3 will have for X tokens. And they're going to give them away for free to everyone who uses the box. So anyone who goes, takes some money, puts it in the box, each day they're going to airdrop, 1% of the X tokens pro rata amongst everyone who's put money in the box. That's, for now, what X token does. It gets given away to the box people. And now what happens? Well, X token has some market cap, right? It's probably not zero. Let's say it's, $20 million market cap. And a bunch of arbitrageurs.
By the way, from first principles, it should be zero, but okay.
Sure. Okay. I completely reasonable comment.
That's not quite true, but when you describe it in this totally cynical way, it sounds like it should be zero. But go on.
Describe it this way. You might think, for instance, that in 5 minutes with an internet connection, you could create such a box and such a token, and that it should reflect it should be worth $180 or something market cap for that, that effort that you put into it. In the world that we're in, if you do this, everyone's going to be like, ooh, box token. Maybe it's cool. If you buy a box token, that's going to appear on Twitter and it'll have a $20 million market cap. And of course, one thing that you could do is you could make the float very low and whatever. Maybe there haven't been $20 million that have flowed into it yet. Maybe that's sort of it's mark to market, fully diluted valuation or something. But I acknowledge that it's not totally clear that this thing should have market cap. But empirically, I claim it would have market cap.
I agree.
It shouldn't have any market cap in theory, but in practice, they always do. Okay.
That's right. So, and obviously, already we're sort of hiding some of the magic in that, right? Some of the magic is in how do you get that market cap to start with, but whatever. We're going to move on from that for a second. So, X tokens being given out each day. All these sophisticated firms are that's interesting. If the total amount of money in the box is $100 million, then it's going to yield $16 million this year in X tokens being given out for it. That's a 16% return. That's pretty good. We'll put a little bit more in, right? And maybe that happens until there are $200 million in the box. So, sophisticated traders and or people on crypto Twitter or other sort of similar parties go and put $200 million in the box collectively, and they start getting these X tokens for it, right? And now all of a sudden everyone's like, wow, people just decide to put $200 million in the box. This is a pretty cool box, right? This is a valuable box, as demonstrated by all the money that people have apparently decided should be in the box. And who are we to say that they're wrong about that? This is, I mean, boxes can be great. Look, I love boxes as much as the next guy, right? And so what happens now, all of a sudden people are kind of recalibrating. They're like, well, $20 million, that's it? That market cap for this box? And it's been 48 hours and it already has $200 million, including from sophisticated players in it. They're like, come on, that's too low, right? and they look at these ratios. TVL, total value locked in the box, as a ratio to market cap of the box's token. And they're like, 10x, that's insane. 1x is the norm. And so then, X token price goes way up, and now it's a $130 million market cap token because of, the bullishness of people's usage of the box. And now all of a sudden, of course, the smart money, it's like, oh, wow, like this thing's now yielding like 60% a year in X tokens. Of course, I'll take my 60% yield. Right. So they pour another $300 million in the box, and you get a cycle, and then it goes to infinity, and then everyone makes money.
I think of myself as like a fairly cynical person, and that was so much more cynical than how I would have described farming. Like, you're just like, well, I'm in the Ponzi business, and it's pretty good.
At no point did any of this require any sort of like economic case. It's just like, other people put money in the box, and so I'm going to too, and then it's more valuable, so I'm going to put more money in. And at no point in the cycle did it seem to like describe any sort of like economic purpose.
So on the one hand, I think that's a pretty reasonable response, but let me play around with this a little bit, right? Because that's one framing of this, and I think there's like a sort of depressing amount of validity.
Can you comment on like the sustainability of that, like?
Yeah.
Because, like, on the one hand, you're like, well, $1 trillion of institutional money is going to come into Bitcoin. On the other hand, you're like, basically, there are a lot of Ponzi's that have done really well.
Right. So okay, cool. I'll stay on the cynical route. Think about, like, cynically what could happen here. Well, okay, so you've got, this box is kind of dumb, but, like, what's the end game, right? This box is worth 0, obviously, and, like, that, you can't, like, keep this market cap or something, but on the other hand, if everyone kind of now thinks that this box token is worth about $1 billion market cap, that's what people are pricing it at, and it sort of has that market cap. Everyone's going to market to market. In fact, you can even finance this, right? You can put X token in a borrow lending protocol and borrow dollars with it. If you think it's worth like less than 2/3 of that, you can even just like put some in there, take the dollars out, and never give the dollars back. You just get liquidated eventually, and it is sort of like real monetizable stuff in some senses. And, at some point, like if the world never decides that we were wrong about this in like a coordinated way, right? Like you're kind of the guy calling bullshit and saying, no, this thing's actually worthless. But in what sense are you right?
Can I just ask on this point? I mean, so are you saying that the value has to derive from everyone agreeing that it's worth something? And I know, like, on the one hand, that seems like a simple point about crypto, but on the other hand, throughout crypto's history, there have been these different arguments about how it actually gets value, use cases for the underlying technology, for blockchain. Everyone's going to start migrating stuff on blockchain, and then you're going to have a real economic use attached to these assets, and that's where the value is going to come from. But are you saying that it depends more on everyone just agreeing that these are worth something?
So really what I'd say is that it could come in theory from either. You can sort of get a market cap either because of cash flow, right? And then like Warren Buffett's like, fuck this, like I'm going to buy this if it's at too cheap of a price, because I'll just buy it and own it and get cash flow from it, and that's great. Or you could see something get market cap in the way that, I don't know, Dogecoin or Shibcoin have, right? Where people are just kind of like, haha, and then they buy it. And if you're like, that's dumb, it has no cash flow, I'm going to short sell it, you lose all your money. And, that those like, at least like over the last few years, those have both been ways that like assets have gotten market cap. And I sort of like think that this starts to hint at like at least some interesting angles on this, because like it's not just cryptocurrencies that have had this dynamic, right? Like, how about like, AMC or Hertz or GameStop or meme stocks in general have like a very similar pattern to this. And the sort of like concept of like, maybe people will pay something for it, even though it doesn't seem traditionally valuable, is not a crypto specific concept, although